Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Navigation. Today I want to provide you a big overview of the cryptocurrency industry. If you're new or only somewhat familiar with cryptocurrency, you may have started to look into it. You may have opened a price tracking page and seen hundreds of cryptocurrencies listed there. And you might be thinking, what in the world, how do I even start to begin to pick through this? So today's video is all about helping you understand, get your bearings, navigate the cryptocurrency space overall, and give you an explanation as to what you're looking at. How did we get from Bitcoin to this massive influx of tokens that we're looking at? So hopefully this video will help give you some clarity, ease your confusions, help you navigate the waters a little bit, and help you understand what you're seeing. So let's get into that. So I settled on the title and subtitle for this one, Cryptocurrency Explained. Why are there so many? If you've gone to a page like CoinGecko recently, something like that, you will have seen that there are over 17,000 coins listed on this page as of March 2025. And obviously, Bitcoin started in 2009. So how on earth did we get from Bitcoin to where we are today? I'm hoping that this overview is going to help you understand the cryptocurrency industry a whole lot better. That's why I've entitled it more of a cryptocurrency explained type a teaching lesson here today. So let's get into that. Hopefully how I go about this will make sense as we start going along, and it will give you a lot of clarity as to the industry as a whole. So starting at the beginning is always a very good place to start. So we're going to start there with Bitcoin. Now, the origin and purpose of Bitcoin is a little bit more well known to people. It was launched in 2009 as the first digital asset. Its purpose is to be a scarce, decentralized digital money that would enable worldwide trustless transactions. That's a lot of mouthful. If a lot of that is unfamiliar to you, understanding Bitcoin at a deep level is really the best way to start understanding the cryptocurrency space. So if you don't have a good, robust understanding of Bitcoin yet, I highly recommend that you start there. I'm hoping to launch a masterclass on that soon, so you can subscribe to this channel if you want to know when that starts coming out. But that really is the best place that you can start. And from there, you need to know and understand that the term cryptocurrency is not a it is not a narrow term like stock or bond. Cryptocurrency is a much more inclusive term that you're going to understand a lot better why that is as we get into this. But if you can kind of put out of your mind the thought that cryptocurrency is this narrow category of thing, that will help you, first of all, understand why you might be confused staring at thousands of different cryptocurrencies, but it'll also help get some wrong thinking out of the way before we begin. So with Bitcoin, it was made to be scarce, to be an alternative to fiat around the world. It was decentralized so that no nation, state, or group could capture control or prevent censorship. It was made permissionless so that anyone in the world could access it and own it. And it was made trustless so that there would be no counterparties involved. It was made to help recreate digitally what you could do with just handing a $5 bill to someone. There's no intermediaries involved, no banks involved like there normally are with digital transactions. It was made to recreate the ability to just give someone peer-to-peer a transaction digitally. It has a very simple code base that simply maintains the Bitcoin ledger, or the blockchain, as it's called. It was not really designed for any additional functionality beyond that. It's made to do one thing and one thing very well, and it does that thing very well. Now, it can also be considered the proof test that decentralized blockchain networks work. So after it was launched in 2009, it begins to have, it's solid, it's working, it's not getting hacked, it's not breaking down. It had one bug in 2010 that had to be rolled back, but they fixed that. And then going forward, it's having, this consistent performance. So you start with this digital asset of Bitcoin. This is like the genesis of all of this. But then you start moving forward from here. Now, I'm going to take these in kind of floods as to how we've gotten to so many new digital assets or cryptocurrencies in such a short amount of time. The first flood of new tokens came from new blockchains. So alternative blockchain networks to Bitcoin. Once Bitcoin has been invented and it's shown that Bitcoin works, does what it says it's going to do, you can transact on it. People are keeping it secure through the mining processes. Everything's working. The ledger's updating. Transactions are processing. It's happening flawlessly for years. Okay. Natural questions start to emerge. What else can this new blockchain technology do? This is a new primitive. It's like if you went out and invented the internet, but the only thing you invented it for was the purpose of sending email. Someone thought, I want to send electronic mail, and they invented the concept of the internet in order to do that. Well, the next natural question would be, what else can I do with this new internet thing? And so people did that with blockchain, started trying to figure out what else the technology can do. What are the other actual good applications of blockchain? Because you can't just put anything on there. Like what are the actual good applications of it? So many blockchain projects started looking to try and find product market fit in areas other than just being digital money or digital gold. That's what Bitcoin was specifically designed to do. And other companies, people with ideas, obviously wanted to be first movers. They wanted to capture other upside, other profit that could be found through finding product market fit for blockchains in other areas. So they started launching new blockchains that would optimize for different things. They weren't necessarily trying to be digital money or digital gold. There were other things these blockchains were trying to accomplish. So you could maybe not have as simple of a code base, maybe not be as decentralized, maybe have a little bit less of a permissionless aspect to it. There's different things that blockchain or that Bitcoin was eventually invented to do that if you want to optimize for a different outcome, you can start tweaking the different parameters to make a blockchain that's maybe better suited for different applications. And so that was the idea behind this initial flood of alternative blockchain networks other than Bitcoin. So you had something like Litecoin, for instance. It was optimized for faster block times and lower fees than Bitcoin. It was actually branded as trying to be a digital silver to Bitcoin being digital gold. In 2012, you had something called PeerCoin, which was actually the first instance of introducing proof of stake security as opposed to just proof of work security. If those terms are unfamiliar to you, that's definitely something that you should look into and study. I'm hoping to, again, have videos on that on this channel soon, so subscribe to the channel to find out when those launch. Dogecoin was the original meme coin. It relies on the Litecoin miners to function, but it gave this fun, goofy thing, digital collectible that people could buy for fun. And that was the original purpose of it, but it's obviously sustained and done very well for itself. Ripple XRP in 2012 was made very fast, almost no decentralization because of how to be as fast as it wants to be. There's very few miners, and almost all of them are controlled by the Ripple Foundation. So it's not really decentralized in the sense that you would think when you're thinking about things like Bitcoin. You had a project called Monero in 2014, and it was privacy focused for confidentiality. So it was made to be a private digital ledger. Bitcoin is a public ledger. Anyone can go and pull down the Bitcoin ledger and look at it, see all the wallet addresses. And if you have a name associated with that wallet address, then you're able to see all the transactions that wallet has ever done. Monero is made to be specifically focused on privacy so that you can't just be public with all the information of transactions and amounts and stuff like that. So that was a good application for the new blockchain. And then Stellar XLM in 2014, it focused on fast and cheap international payments for things like remittances, trying to send money back to your home country. So these were a lot of, and not at all an exhaustive list, but a lot of new ideas, new applications of blockchain technology that came out that resulted in, we not just have Bitcoin now we've got all these new cryptocurrencies as well for people to see, invest in, consider, use, things like that. So that's just new token flood number one. Then Ethereum gets involved with smart contracts. Now, the Ethereum origin philosophy was in 2015. It was launched as a blockchain smart contract network. It did not have a simple code base. It had a much more complex code base so that it could execute protocols that were built on top of it. It was launched by Bitcoiners who wanted Bitcoin to have more functionality. So they wanted to take those good inherent properties of Bitcoin and allow those properties to be, adopted by technology and industry as possible. Its complex code base allows for programming to happen on top of the blockchain layer. Bitcoin's not going to execute smart contracts. It doesn't have the capability of that. You can kind of think of the difference between a simple little pocket calculator and a graphing calculator that high schoolers have to have when they get into like algebra and calculus and stuff. That's kind of the difference between Bitcoin and Ethereum. Now, the goal, like I said, being to take the properties of Bitcoin and make them assignable anywhere you could build off of Ethereum. Protocols could be built on this new smart contract platform. Okay, so that's the big deal. So far, we only have network tokens, right? Bitcoin is a network and has its Bitcoin token. Ethereum is a network, has its ETH token. Filecoin is a network and has file. Like each network has its own token. But now you're going to launch protocols on top of an existing blockchain network, and that changes things. This gave the opportunity for projects to launch and have their own coin without having to launch their own blockchain. Okay, so you can start to see that the barrier of entry of launching a coin is starting to get really low. And when that happens, you're going to get a lot more coins. That's just going to be the natural outcome of lowering that barrier to entry. So token flood number 2 was ICOs. And this was a more unfortunate learning process that the crypto space had to go through. So projects built on Ethereum, generally built on Ethereum, could fundraise by issuing their own token, which would act like a stock or equity in this new project. Now, you can see some of the possible upside of this. The selling point was that anyone could get in on the ground floor investing in the next big thing, not just accredited investors. You didn't have to be a venture capitalist to be involved in, a seed round of a new product that you thought was going to be wildly successful. You could be involved too and be one of those venture capitalists that saw your money go up, 10,000% or whatever. That was kind of the idea. And there's some merit in that. You want to open the financial opportunities to everyone where you can. There's some value in that. But you'd have, really hyperbolic statements being thrown out as a part of that fundraising, like, is this the next Bitcoin? And it would get people's fear of missing out going to where they would want to invest and throw some money at these various projects. ICOs had no investor protections, and that was the big problem. There's no audits, disclosures, no regulatory approvals needed whatsoever. You didn't have to have a working product at launch. You could literally just write a white paper explaining your idea, launch a coin on Ethereum, and raise millions of dollars. As you might imagine, that is a playground for scammers. Everything could be fake. The white paper could be recycled and copied from somewhere else. You can copy and paste someone else's coin code, launch it on Ethereum, boom, get a social media page going, and you'd attract a ton of capital. So not a good space or a very good space for scammers, not a good space for good actors. Ultimately, the SEC began cracking down as a lot of these were unregistered security offerings. So this was a period of time where most of the stuff that was launched was junk, to be honest, because the barrier to entry to raise millions of dollars was too low. It was too tempting. And so very few ICO companies ultimately found success, and many were just outright fraud. So token flood number 3 is specifically protocol tokens. Now, projects built on Ethereum generally, again, could decentralize ownership and governance by issuing a token. Not quite the same as an ICO. There are some similarities, but these could give governance rights So if you're a holder of a token, you could vote and have input on what the protocol's future roadmap is, what they're going to be doing, things like that. It could kind of act as an equity in the protocol. Couldn't really because of securities laws. That's a whole other discussion. But what it did do is provide a decentralized coordination mechanism. Just like Bitcoin provides incentive alignment for everyone working on the Bitcoin network, the miners, all that stuff. Tokens issued for a protocol could offer the same thing. It offers incentive alignment to everyone who's working on that protocol and being paid in that token to make the token successful. Now, MakerDAO, if you've heard of them, they're the issuer of DAI, a stablecoin, was one of the first to do this. But things really took off in 2020 when Compound, a borrowing and lending protocol, launched their governance token with yield farming. What was yield farming? Yield farming was the first mechanism of incentivizing use of a protocol by paying out rewards in the protocol token. So basically incentivized using the Compound protocol instead of maybe other protocols, or maybe you weren't using a borrowing and lending protocol, but now, I can earn tokens by depositing my money into Compound to let other people borrow, and I get yield from the people borrowing it, the APY that they pay me, and I get Compound tokens. So you get these like extra reward incentives. Now, this was such a popular model and so successful that it really launched the DeFi boom. DeFi stands for decentralized finance. All these applications that you can do on chain, on the blockchain, that are not centralized at a bank or other places. You can do borrowing and lending, things like that, on the Ethereum blockchain without having to use a centralized intermediary. That's great. All of these DeFi protocols started their own yield farming. They launched a token, started doing their own yield farming incentive structures to try and attract users. And it led to this big boom in the use of Ethereum and people trying to farm all these tokens that were coming out. Now, again, most of those tokens would become pretty valueless over time, but some of them would not. Some of them that had really good programs or protocols behind them with good leadership, good ideas, they have endured and will probably be quite valuable and will be the cornerstone of DeFi moving forward. But this helps explain, again, this big boom and flood of tokens that suddenly entered the environment. And once you launch a token, it may trend more and more valueless over time, but doesn't really ever go away. So it's still a token that's out there that you can interact with, buy, do all this stuff. So token flood number 4 happened around the same time, and this is where things really go exponential, and I'll explain why. You have the alternative layer 1 development. Now, what is that? The alternative smart contract platforms other than Ethereum started being developed. Ethereum's scaling process, which is their ability to execute more and more transactions through layer 2s, did not keep up with DeFi demand. Now, what does all that mean? Ethereum's roadmap to scaling, to be able to process more and more transactions, have more and more users doing more and more things, is through what are called layer 2s, which are, if the Ethereum blockchain network is your layer 1, these layer 2s are scaling mechanisms where you can move your transactions onto the layer 2 off of the main blockchain, and that layer 2 just basically submits a proof of all the transactions back to the layer 1 in a single transaction. So it bundles up thousands and thousands of transactions into a single transaction that then Ethereum can process very simply. Now, that's a really good idea and it works very well, but the roadmap of getting there wasn't moving fast enough to meet the demand that the DeFi boom was creating. So this created a market for alternative layer 1s. The Ethereum blockchain is a layer 1, the layer 2s are off of it, and now you've got this incentive existing in the market for there to be alternatives to Ethereum that are optimized, kind of like Bitcoin alternatives were optimized for different things. Now these new layer 1s can be optimized for fast quick, cheap transactions, which Ethereum was not able to provide because of all the congestion, because of all the DeFi stuff going on. So hopefully that all makes sense. Oops, sorry, wrong way. Now, this led to the development of other smart contract blockchain platforms that made sacrifices in decentralization or other tweaks to optimize for fast and cheap transactions. So you've got things like Solana, which a lot of you may have heard of. It's an alternative layer one. It's less decentralized than Ethereum, optimized for fast and cheap transactions. Avalanche is another one that has some other technological tweaks in it to help provide fast and cheap transactions. Phantom is another one as well that it's rebranded recently to Sonic, but at the time it was Phantom. So now here's where things went exponential. These new, all these new layer ones would then have protocols built on top of them, just like the Ethereum layer one has DeFi protocols built on them. Well, if you're going to have DeFi on these new chains, you got to have the same protocols on those chains. And those protocols are going to launch a token. So you go exponential here with like every new blockchain, smart contract blockchain that you invent, you're going to get kind of a replication of all the DeFi tokens that are on Ethereum also. And the thing about crypto in general is that there's not, you can copy someone's code as much as you want to. So if you have a program like Compound on Ethereum, you can copy all of that code and replicate it on another chain, especially if it's an Ethereum compatible chain like Avalanche or Phantom, and you can just reproduce that protocol really quickly. So when you have a new chain, now you've got these new incentives to launch new protocols on them. The number of tokens in existence just starts to get exponential because of this process and how all of this is playing out. Then you get the layer twos involved also. And the same thing basically happens. The layer twos began launching on top of Ethereum. They would typically launch their own tokens, which wasn't a lot. You've got a system like Polygon, which wasn't technically a layer two at first. It has a suite of scaling products for Ethereum, but Arbitrum is a direct layer two, and so is Optimism. So they all had token launches, and then the same thing happens. New forked protocols would appear on these layer twos launching their own token. So you've got Ethereum, and then you've got the alternative layer ones copying all of Ethereum's protocols. Then you've got these layer twos that are also copying Ethereum's protocols. Now, sometimes the protocols from Ethereum themselves would launch their exact same protocol on the layer twos, but that didn't stop other people from trying to compete and launch their own protocols as well. So during this whole time through 2020, 21, 22, you're seeing this exponential growth in the number of tokens that are available for purchase in the crypto space because of this massive boom of DeFi and then alternative layer ones and layer twos. It's all kind of snowballing together to where the number of tokens in the crypto space is just going exponential. And that's how we've gotten to where we are today. So the last flood I want to talk about is meme coins. Meme coins have been around since the beginning, and they also create a large portion of the coins that are in existence today. Meme coin growth over time has kind of happened in parallel with all the other growth of the crypto ecosystem. Dogecoin was the original meme coin in 2013. We already talked about that back at the beginning. And anyone can launch a meme coin based on a shared interest, a viral internet meme, celebrity, anything at all. And again, the barrier to entry for launching a meme coin is negligible. So if you think you've got an idea of something that's funny or that people will buy for whatever reason, you have no reason not to give it a shot, right? It doesn't cost you anything but a little bit of time to launch a meme coin and just see if it goes viral and makes you millions of dollars. So again, it's something with a very low barrier to entry, but very high upside. Anytime you have that, people are going to take a stab at it and see what happens. So it also coincided with the rise of meme stocks, if you're familiar with that at all, like when the GameStop meme stock phenomenon was kind of happening, is kind of happening the same time as meme coins are taking off. You got doggy tokens, some of the more popular ones I'm showing here. You've got other stuff like Pepe. It's a very, crypto 4chan related type thing. Trump launched a meme coin, around the time of his inauguration. So anyone can launch for whatever reason, and it's just out there. So meme coins play a large role in the space, and it's grown over time as launching them has become easier. There are platforms now, on Solana and some of the Ethereum layer 2s to help anyone who wants to launch their own meme coin. So the barrier to entry for meme coins just keeps getting lower, which means you're just going to keep seeing them. You just got to know that. That's part of it. So having kind of gone over all of this, what are some conclusions that we can draw? How can we use this knowledge to help navigate the crypto space better? Well, first off, this presentation is a broad overview of why and how we got to this many cryptocurrencies. It's not exhaustive in any way because we are still in the discovery phase of crypto. We're still figuring out what works with blockchain, what works with blockchain protocols, what has product market fit, what is worth putting on a blockchain. These are still questions that are being answered and figured out. So as long as that's going on, more categories are going to keep developing. So just know that this is how these things are happening and why these things are happening. But more categories will come as time goes on. Most of the cryptocurrencies in existence will trend towards zero value over time. That is the reality. If you're investing in a cryptocurrency, it's speculative. I think that Bitcoin is in a lot of ways beyond that speculative phase. I think Ethereum and Solana are starting to get there, but beyond that, it's speculative. That's just all there is to it. So not to say there's not great projects and great ideas out there, but you need to know what you're investing in. There is significant due diligence that must be done before investing in any single cryptocurrency because you don't know what category it's in. You don't know what the product is behind it that would give it value. You don't know who the team is leading that particular coin. Why was it launched? What is the tokenomics of that coin? Have they launched 10% to the public, but 90% is being held by the team that they're just going to sell when the price goes up and drop the price on everybody else? Like all of these questions are involved when deciding to invest in any single cryptocurrency. And so the biggest conclusion to all this is to start with Bitcoin. Okay, understanding Bitcoin is the best thing you can do to be getting to understand the entire crypto space as a whole. But Bitcoin is the most, proven, solid, resilient crypto asset that's ever been invented, right? So there's no need for a lot of people to venture beyond that. And a lot of people probably shouldn't. So if you're a fiduciary advising your clients, this is something you need to keep in mind is how far out on the risk spectrum do you want to go in the cryptocurrency space? Bitcoin has a lot of institutional adoption. It has world governments own it to a certain extent. So it's really, Bitcoin is really in a category all of its own. And I would say ETH is kind of is behind it in kind of a category of its own, not to Bitcoin's level, but also different than most of the crypto space. And we're going to see over time which of these coins have resiliency. So when it comes to looking at the crypto space, don't have FOMO. FOMO, will get you wrecked just throwing money at potential projects. Be wise, be sound, be smart about what you're doing. So if this has at all been helpful, I would love for you to share in the comments what you think. What questions do you have that I didn't answer? Because if you have any questions, I try to respond to all my commenters. So if there's anything I didn't address in here that you really want to know, shoot me a comment. I'll try to answer it as quickly as I can. Subscribe so you can hear when new videos like this are coming out. Maybe there's more videos I've mentioned that I'm planning on producing that would be helpful to you. Go ahead and subscribe so you know when those come out. For now, though, that's it. I hope that this was helpful. I'll look forward to seeing you next time.